often a cruel one.
Every time you lose, you die a little bit. You die inside, a portion of you. Not all of your organs, maybe just your liver.
Pain is inevitable.
They're killing me, Whitey. They're killing me.
There was only the painful face of failure.
Okay, fellas? Hey, fellas, this is what you work all off season for. This is why you lift all them weights. This is why you do all that.
There was a fighting heart under the ribs of defeat.
Never give up, baby. Never give up.
Hey, because football season never ends. This is Intentional Grounding with your host, Pat Grothier, on Brookdale Student Radio, 90.5 The Night. Check it out.
All right, welcome back, everybody, here to another week at Intentional Grounding. Thank you for joining us. As always, it's always a great time being here. So we'll start off a little bit right now with some of the stuff we couldn't fit into the show right away. The Josh Freeman thing here. This is Peyton Manning he is out this week, just this practice with a ankle injury. So he will practice Wednesday, they say. Practice Monday, I believe. Let me look at it exactly what they said. Expected back Thursday. He missed today with a minor ankle injury. So the short little thing there. Peyton Manning owners, don't be too scared. He will be back. So we'll get into 5 and Out as always, giving you the top 5 NFL headlines of the week. We'll start off here at Washington. After multiple illegal hits, 2 coming on Sunday, multiple illegal hits just on the season so far. 2 coming this Sunday versus the Bears. Washington safety Brandon Merriweather will be suspended for 2 games. A ban which, of course, he is appealing, as pretty much every single player, no matter what the ban, the suspension or ban is, they always appeal it just to get their case out there. Expected to be heard today, so later on or tomorrow, if we get an update, I'll sure to let you guys know on Twitter and Facebook and all that on if the 2-game suspension is upheld, if they lower it to a game, if they lower it to no games, which I don't see happening. If it is upheld, if it does stand, then it will cost him about $140,000 in game checks. And it's rightfully so. I mean, a lot of Bears were angry with the hits that Merriweather was doling out on Sunday. Brandon Marshall, their wide receiver, was one of the victims. Frustratedly said the league should consider kicking him out for his play or doing something about it. Martellus Bennett, who is the newly acquired tight end for them in the offseason, he ripped Merriweather, saying that he wants to punch him in the face. So, it got a little bit heated after the game on Sunday. Martellus Bennett saying this on his weekly radio show on WSR 670 in Chicago. This is one of his quotes here. He said, "These guys getting hit illegally have kids, they have livelihoods. You never want to see that happen to a guy. And I don't think you want to be a guy that causes that type of emotional pain on his family, his livelihood, whether a guy can work or do things because football is football. At the end of the day, it's not who we are. It's just what we do. And this is something that I also heard why the NFLPA isn't getting more involved in this is beyond me. D. Smith, the head of the NFL Players Association, should be going to these guys who are repeatedly headhunting, just burying their head right into another guy's head and just say something, we're all players. This shouldn't be done. And then Redskins started to fire back at Martellus Bennett and at Brandon Marshall's comments. D'Angelo Hall was saying that, I don't know Bennett personally, but he had a chance to say whatever he wanted to during the game, after the game, and the kid didn't open his mouth. No respect for a guy who wants to take a shot after the fact. No respect for a guy like that. Redskins quarterback Josh Wilson went on to say later in another quote, one thing that I read just before and I didn't agree with, we're just out there trying to play football the best way we know how. So that shows you that it's poor coaching. It was a poor coaching from when he was being brought up through a football program, and it's just ridiculous. There's a whole lot of middle ground between completely going after a guy's head and then going in the extreme low and burying your helmet into his knees. So it's a big mess with the way everything's being handled with helmet to helmet and burying the helmet into your knees, into a player's knees. So if the coaches don't start correcting it from the NFL level and from even further down from that, I don't see the game lasting very long, to be fully honest with you. We'll get into the next one here. A lot of injuries happened. And my dad says it all the time, and I agree with him 100%. He makes a very good point, is that with the new NFL collective bargaining agreement, when we had the lockout in 2011, there's less practice time now. So you don't have as much time out on the practice field during mini camps and training camps. Not a lot of the stuff is mandatory anymore. So just going down the list of notable injuries, I picked this right off of the TV. I posted it up to all the social media stuff that were on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram and all that. Sam Bradford out for the season with an ACL. Reggie Wayne as well out for the season with an ACL. Leon Hall, cornerback for the Bengals. He tore his Achilles. He is out for the season. Brian Cushing, linebacker for the Texans, tore his LCL and broke his leg too, I believe, out for the season. Jermichael Finley, he just got updated status. He actually had a bruised spinal cord in his neck. So he was released from the hospital, I believe today, or it might have been yesterday, after that diagnosis. They kept him in the ICU just to be safe. Yeah, yesterday I got the update saying he was expected to leave the hospital within 24 hours, and he's expected to stay off the field for about 4 to 6 weeks. Doug Martin tore, I believe, labrum in his shoulder, and they just said today that it's not expected to be season-ending. Initially, there were some sources saying that it would be season-ending, but let's see here. During a radio interview today, I believe, Doug Martin said it will not end his season. So right now he's doing treatment on it with the trainers and taking it day by day, seeing how it feels. Jay Cutler is another big one. He tore a muscle in his groin. It's a minimum out of about 4 weeks. And then Lance Briggs, a linebacker for the Bears as well with Jay Cutler. He hurt his shoulder, and he is out 4 to 6 weeks. So I said that's a litany of injuries, and that's probably not even all of them. That's just the notable guys that you see going down. So, with the way that they're not practicing enough, with the low hits because nobody wants to go high and get fined for it. This is the repercussions. So Roger Goodell is going to have to do something. All the owners are very happy with all the money that he's lining their pockets with. But when you're going to have no players, nobody's going to want to play football because they're scared for their lives. The sport's going to crumble. So something's going to have to be done very soon. Josh Freeman. For some unknown reason, he is still the starting quarterback for the Vikings. Up until just about an hour ago, Josh Freeman, he may have a concussion now. So possibly Christian Ponder could get the start Sunday night against the Packers. And I think every Vikings fan is hoping for that. Not hoping that, Josh Freeman, it's never good when a player gets hurt, but Leslie Frazier is making these ridiculous choices. He went 20 of 53 in the Monday night loss against the Giants. 16 of his 33 incompletions were overthrown to his receivers. That's 23.8% according to ESPN statistics and information. So just a very shocking stat there that the guy, I understand it's his first game, but he shouldn't have been in there in the first place. He's there. He was there for 2 weeks, I believe. He came in, I think, on their bye after they came back from London. I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was absolutely no reason to be starting Josh Freeman against that, no matter what team you were facing on Monday night. So hopefully Christian Ponder. I know all the Vikings. I work with a Vikings fan at work, and he says that he's on the same boat as me. No idea what Leslie Frazier's thinking. He's basically coaching himself out of his job. So we'll see how that goes. Then a sad week in the NFL here, of course. The NFL family and the Titans, former Oilers organization, had some big losses in the past week. Bum Phillips, former coach of the Houston Oilers during their Love You Blue days, where they had their best times as an organization. He's the father of Wade Phillips, who's been a head coach throughout the league, currently a defensive coordinator over with the Houston Texans. Known for his classic cowboy hat look with the boots and the blue jeans. He was a Marine, so he never wore his hat inside any kind of dome or indoors. That stuck with him all the time. And just a few days after that, owner Bud Adams passed away peacefully from natural causes, his family said. Bud Adams was a huge part of the AFL-NFL merger, being one of the founding fathers of the AFL. So the guy was a pioneer in the sport, and without him and some of the other guys who really pushed to have the two leagues join into what we know as the National Football League now, it wouldn't have happened without him. Both of them passed on at the age of 90, so rest in peace, and all the condolences out to their families. And then here next up, a lot of Cleveland Brown news this week as we start to round out 5 and out. Trade deadline is looming. It's on the 29th of this month. So sources are saying that offers are on the table for Browns wide receiver Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon's fed up. He's tired of all the rumors. He said, quote, "I honestly wish if it was going to happen, it would happen already, instead of dragging it on. If a trade offer came in and that's what they wanted to do, so be it. If not, then just let it be known that this is where I'm going to be." Completely understandable. Whoever wrote let me see, Pat McMahon of ESPN wrote the article, said his statement was not a rant. It was merely an acknowledgement that constant speculation wears on him. So, yeah, he wasn't sitting there, on his soapbox yelling at the reporter saying this. He's just tired of it. And anybody can understand that because they've been talking about shopping him since he came back from his suspension. They're saying, Adam Schefter's saying at least 3 teams are interested to have standing offers of a high pick plus a player in a package deal. The teams who offered said that Cleveland isn't moving until they get the deal that feels right for them. So they have until the 29th. We'll see if, Josh Gordon or anybody else in the league will get traded by then as we get closer. And it's about 6 days from now, so it's next Tuesday. We'll be on the day after, so we'll see the aftermath of what happened on the trade deadline. Also with Cleveland, you got more of a quarterback shakeup for the Browns after Whedon's just horrid 17 of 42 and 149-yard performance in the loss to the Packers, where they went down 31-13. Head coach Rob Chudzinski said today that backup Jason Campbell will be the starter. So he is actually the 20th quarterback to start for the Browns since 1999. Whedon, before he just got benched for Jason Campbell, he was 32nd in the league in completion percentage, 31st in yards per attempt, and 30th in passer rating. So, I mean, it's justified. He can't argue it, and nobody can argue it. I'm sure many Cleveland citizens are very happy. I don't know how much happier I would be putting in Jason Campbell, but I would say just about anything is better than the way Brandon Whedon's been playing. And shocking, because I talked him up, and I'll stick by it, he looked great in the preseason. And I know it's preseason, but even when it was first quarter action and it was first team offenses versus first team defenses, he was still looking very sharp and very comfortable in the new Norv Turner offense. So who knows what happened, whether it was the absence of Josh Gordon, his star wide receiver for the first 2 weeks. I don't know. Jason Campbell, who is the now starter over in Cleveland, his last start was in Oakland in 2011. He hurt his shoulder after a 4-2 start to the season, and then Oakland got Carson Palmer. We all know what happened after that. Carson Palmer didn't work out. They shipped him off to Arizona. They got Matt Flynn. Matt Flynn didn't work out. Now Terrell Pryor's their man. So it seems like these two teams probably, if I found a stat, I'm sure it would be these two teams have the most starting quarterbacks in the last decade. We won't even go back to 1999 like the Browns with the 20 quarterbacks. Just in the last 10 years, probably have the most starting quarterbacks. And this was almost the most ridiculous story of the NFL this week. Jeff Garcia throws his hat in for the Browns quarterback job, saying, quote, "I actually reached out to the Browns and said, hey, if you need a guy to come in, work me out, take a look." He said this to a Cleveland radio station. So kind of strange. Jeff Garcia, who hasn't played since 2008, I want to say, or the last time he was in the NFL was 2011, but he hasn't started a game since 2008. He did start a game for the UFL's Omaha Nighthawks in 2010. So Jeff Garcia, we'll leave it at that. We will go into this weekend in review. So it was not an exciting game week in the NFL. The Sunday night game didn't live up to the expectations in my eyes. A lot of people were saying it was a great game, but I thought from at a point in the second quarter to towards the end of the third quarter, it was a very boring game. There wasn't a whole lot going on. Local game recap, we have the Jets beating the Patriots in a 30-27 overtime thriller with the whole penalty fiasco. I won't get into that because then I'll be standing up on a soapbox and ranting for the next hour, so I'll spare you guys that. That was the game where you had a big fight outside afterwards where a man punched a woman in the face. I was over getting something to eat before, and I was looking at the paper, and both of them were charged. So, very good that both of them were charged in that because they both did have a hand in it. Buffalo beat Miami 23-21. Dallas decimated Philly 17-3. The quarterback situation was horrible for the Eagles. Pittsburgh surprisingly beat Baltimore 19-16, and the Giants got their first win, beating the Vikings 23-7 on Monday night. Best game of the week for me was the fourth quarter of the. I couldn't even find a best game because I wish I could have watched the Bengals-Lions game because that seemed like it was a good one. So I can't say it was the best game because I didn't watch it. Looking at the box scores and reading recaps of it, that looked to be the best game. But of ones that I watched, the fourth quarter of the Indianapolis and Denver game where the Colts and Andrew Luck beat the Broncos with Peyton Manning coming back home for the first time, 39-33. Peyton came up. I think it was 16 points scored in the last quarter. One thing I will say that if you were looking on Twitter during the game that I posted up, the touchdown towards the end. So you had in the last quarter you had Coby Fleener, tight end of the Colts, dove around the end. You can go on NFL.com and watch the replay. The rule is what happened now is that there's a rule where you have to have possession all the way down to the ground. So if you catch a ball in the end zone, this is only a rule that's where it's in the end zone. So you catch a ball in the end zone, you have to maintain possession going all the way down to the ground. You can't just catch it, put one foot down, or balls. You don't have full possession of it. So you need to have full possession. When you're running towards the end zone, if you catch a ball, you catch a screen pass, you're running towards the corner, and you just dive, and you hit the pylon, you cross the plane, and then you fall down, the ball hits the ground and pops out, it's still a touchdown. And they ruled Coby Fleener's touchdown that. But if you go back and look at what they called Eric Decker's touchdown and incompletion, it is almost the same exact play. So why this is getting no attention, but the Jets penalty and the Jets game fight is beyond me. This should be looked into by the NFL and by the VP of officiating, because I thought that was a terrible call by the officials, and that should have been a touchdown, which would have been a huge difference maker in that game. Best game of the week. So that was, I thought, just the fourth quarter of that game, had me on the edge of my seat, definitely. The couple quarters before that were a little bit of snoozers, but they definitely capped it off very well. I had a couple upsets of the week. I thought Washington, 45-41 win over Chicago. Nobody would have guessed that would have been a shootout. Robert Griffin, the third quarterback for Washington team, looking very good. And then I thought also the Jets overtime win against New England was definitely an upset too. MVP had to be Andy Dalton. He was 24-34. He had a 372-yard game with 3 touchdowns and the 27-24 win over Detroit. So Chiefs, after this weekend, Chiefs are the only undefeated team. Broncos lost to the Colts. They had their win in Houston. So the Chiefs are still 7-0. I want to take a look at their schedule because I'm interested to see. I don't remember exactly when they play the Broncos, but I know it's very soon. It's right after their bye, and the games are very close together. So let's take a look at the Chiefs' schedule here. They have the Cleveland Browns next, then they go to Buffalo, and then they're on the bye. Then it's Denver, San Diego, Denver. So that's going to be a tough little 3-game stretch for them. That's 3 division games in a row. You're going at Denver, and then you're home for San Diego, and then home again for Denver. So those are going to be some very good games. I'm hoping I can catch at least one of those Denver games. I would love to watch that to see, because these are 2 great teams. Imagine if you had Denver's offense with Kansas City's defense. That team would be one of the best in the NFL of all time, because those are 2 phenomenal units on both sides of the ball. Kansas City's defense, I think, has 35 sacks so far in the season, so great job by them. Giants, of course, like I said, won their first game versus the Vikings, so the Buccaneers and the Jacksonville Jaguars are the only teams who remain winless. We'll take a quick break here. We'll come back. We'll do games to watch next week. We do have a most ridiculous story. This one's not really more of a funny one, just more of a you're an idiot kind of one. And then power rankings and a little bit of a surprise at the end. I was watching the league fantasy show about fantasy football, and I got a little bit of an idea when I was watching the episode preparing for the show. So I did a little searching, and I got something and a little bit of a test for you guys after the show, and you guys can update me after you take the test. So we'll be back. All right, welcome back, everybody, and thank you for joining us, as always, here on Intentional Grounding. I'm your host, Pat Groth here, so we'll get back into it. We got games to watch coming up this weekend. So tomorrow night, the Thursday night game on NFL Network, we have 3-3 Carolina facing the winless Buccaneers. So that will be not a great Thursday night game. I've been noticing. I was talking about this with my dad and my brother the other night. There's been a lot of snoozers on Thursday and Monday night. There's been like 1 or 2 good games for each Thursday and Monday night. It's been some really, really boring ones. So I haven't looked at the schedule towards the second half of the season, but usually Thursday night games started around week 12, like right around Thanksgiving. So they started at week 2, and believe me, I love watching football. I wish they could put it on every day of the week, but some of these games have been kind of boring. A couple of bye weeks, people on bye weeks. So we got this is the first week with a lot of them, not just 2 teams. Chicago, Tennessee Titans, Indianapolis going off the win, San Diego, Baltimore, and Houston, who desperately needs it. Local games, we have the 4-3 Jets facing off against the 5-2 Bengals, so that should be a good one. Miami, another AFC East division game. Miami and New England have 2 in a row. They are facing off against each other. New England 5-2, going into Ryan Tannehill and the Dolphins, who are 3-3. You have Buffalo 3-4, facing New Orleans Saints 5-1. The 1-6 Giants, divisional game here, facing off against the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 3-4, led by, who knows this week, if Nick Foles, after the concussion, who knows if he's going to get cleared. If Matt Barkley is leading the Philadelphia Eagles into battle, then expect the Giants to win 2 in a row, I believe. And then you have the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Oakland Raiders. Both teams are 2-4. So couple of games to watch this week. We have a division game. I think, even though the records don't say so, and you may call me wrong, Giants and Philly. There's not many other good division games, and this is one where you're going to see both teams fighting tooth and nail to try to get some wins to get up in this very, muddy division right now. It's still anybody's game. A lot of teams are 3-4, 4-3. Giants down at 1-6, but any team can still pull this out. You can win the rest of the games. Giants can win the rest of the games this season and go 10-6. I'm sorry to put the jinx on you, but anything is possible in this league. You got the prove yourself game of the week. I think it's the Jets versus Cincy. Big game for the Jets. If they can come out and stop Andy Dalton from having another 350-plus yard performance, that would be huge, because the run game for the Bengals is not doing great. You have Giovanni Bernard, the rookie, in there who's had some spotty performances. They seem to be putting all their eggs in his basket because Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, the law firm, his stats are dwindling from week 1. Like I said, just some boring Thursday and Monday night games. The Monday night game is going to be, I think, Seahawks and the Rams. So we'll see what happens. But some of those games, those can be the games that are the best of the week. So regardless, I'm watching them because I love football. Most ridiculous NFL story. Like I said, this isn't a funny one that's going to make you laugh. You're just going to say, this guy is just an idiot. After the Giants victory over Minnesota on Monday night, a fan wrote in a pair of tweets to running back Brandon Jacobs, who was announced inactive, pretty much that he was expected the day before, but was announced as usual in the injury report before the game. Brandon Jacobs would not suit up. Fan wrote in a pair of tweets that he was ordering Brandon Jacobs to rush for 50 yards and 2 touchdowns on Monday night, or it's over for you and your family, and included a racist comment as well. Jacobs then retweeted the fan, and with his own, look at what we deal with. So, people are just, you think you're invulnerable when you're behind your keyboard, but when you're putting all your personal information up on Twitter and Facebook and everything, you're an idiot, because now you're probably going to wind up being investigated and having something brought up onto you if Jacobs wants to do it, because this isn't the first time it's happened. You got Matt Schaub having people, pulling into his driveway and shouting stuff at him. People are getting death threats all the time on Twitter. I can't remember his name. I want to say Kyle Williams, but I'm pretty positive that's wrong. The guy from the 49ers who dropped the punt, or I can't remember what team he was on or when it happened. I think it was last season or 2 seasons ago, when he dropped the punt that would have got them the win in a game. He just got berated on Twitter. People just sending, I hope you die, and this and that, and people are just taking it to a whole nother level. So this is just disappointing for the NFL fans. The guy tried to delete them, but it's what you did, you already done. So it's just ridiculous. He did reply to him another one and said, this is my real life. This is what he's doing. So, who cares about your fantasy football team? Stupid stuff. So we'll do the power rankings. I'll post them up on Twitter and Facebook. So Twitter is @INT_grounding and Facebook.com/intentional grounding. Let's see if it works on Facebook this week. It didn't seem to last week. Let's see if it goes. We got a pretty slow network. Okay, good, it worked. All right, so hop on those pages there and follow along as we head through the power rankings of Week 7. Now, this is where I had a little bit of a conundrum going on when I was trying to put these together. What I was going to do with the 1 and the 2 spots. Because the Broncos have been reigning at number 1. KC just moved up to the number 2 spot. I left it the way it was. Even though the Broncos showed a glaring weak point in their defense and offensive line, which is beat up, I still believe they're the best team in the league at this point in time. The power rankings, to me, the way I perceive them, the way I do them every week, is it's not the team that did the best that past week. It's the overall of how they are at this point in time. And I still think the Broncos could go out there and beat almost all of these teams 9 times out of 10. They did show a big chink in the armor, though, so it's, they got to improve. They absolutely have to improve. Number 2, like I said, keeping Kansas City there. This is one of the facts. Don't get me wrong. Their defense is phenomenal. Like I said before, you got Derek Johnson at linebacker, Tom Bahali, who's up there leading in sacks. So I'm not knocking their defense at all. But the fact that they barely beat an ailing Texans team led by Case Keenum, it's what kept them at the number 2 spot. Undefeated or not, they should have blown this team out, no doubt. Not beat them by 1 point. So we'll see what happens next week. We'll see what happens when KC and Denver meets. There could be a bit of a switch there. It could happen before. Number 3 is Seattle. The top 4 stayed the same. So I believe even though, with the bye weeks and what top 4 is still solid to me. Good Thursday night win for them. The O-line looked very shaky at a few points towards the second and third quarter. The Cards defense almost got the better of them in the first half. You had 3 total fumbles on the game on Russell Wilson. I think he lost 2 of them. They got 1 back. So the defense was getting pressure on him. He just could not stay in the pocket for more than a second at one point. But Carson Palmer couldn't do anything on offense with the way that secondary is. It's phenomenal. We'll be talking about Seahawks later on in the show on Team Talk. We're going to talk about them this week. So we'll see. Number 4 is New Orleans Saints. Hopefully Jimmy Graham got some rest on the bye. Now they're off to face the Bills. It should be a walk in the park for them, honestly, at home where they are undefeated this season. 5 jumping up 3 spots is the Colts. Coming off a great win, they go right into a bye. So the defense, they thwarted Manning for most of the game. But if you really looked into it and looked past, how well he did in the first couple quarters, Luck really started to dismantle a little bit towards the end. He couldn't, solidify that game for them. Number 6 staying the same as the Niners. Their defense kept the Titans scoreless for the first 3 quarters and held the 17 points they scored in the fourth. It couldn't pull them over the top. So it was another great outing by Gore. I don't think he reached 100 yards or something in the 80s or 90s. But he did have 2 touchdowns, so that's always a plus. Frank Gore doing very well this season. Number 7 jumping up 2 is the Green Bay Packers. So it was a good win a week after they lost 2 of their best receivers. You had Boykin stepped up. He had a big 100-yard game. Lacey Holden another touchdown of his own. He had 82 yards. But now you have Finley out. So you have 3, I would probably say 3 of your 4 leading receivers and receptions. If I had to look at it, I'm sure that would be the case with having Randall Cobb, James Jones, and Jermichael Finley out. So it's going to, like I said when I was talking about them last week too, they just can't go a season without having a whole bunch of notable injuries. Number 8 is the Bengals. They went up 2 as well. It was another late Mike Nugent field goal. It won them the game. But, they didn't push it into overtime this weekend. But it was another bad outing by rookie running back Bernard. A.J. Green kind of picked up the slack a little bit. He had one of his best performances of the season, 155 yards and a touchdown. Calvin Johnson, one of his mentors, he said they traded jerseys after the game. He had a 155-yard performance as well with 2 touchdowns. So it was definitely a quarterback's game over in Detroit. Number 9 is the Patriots. Like I said, still a great team. They dropped down 4 spots, but they're still a great team. But this one hurt New England. You can't blame the correctly called penalty all you want. But when Tom Brady is 0 for 7 on third downs until about, I think it was around 5 to 7 minutes left in the game, something's wrong. When you get your first third down conversion with minutes remaining in the fourth quarter, how about you throw some blame that way too? Number 10 is the Chicago Bears. They dropped down 3. It was a rough day. They lost Cutler early. He's out for about 4 weeks. Tore his groin. Josh McCown came in. He looked pretty good, but he couldn't pull it out. Washington How they got that win is still beyond me. I wish I could have watched that game to see exactly what was happening. I know Cutler went out early in the game, so McCown had to kind of put the team on his back, and he didn't do terrible, but he couldn't pull out the W. Number 11 is the Dallas Cowboys. They made the two Philly quarterbacks look like Pop Warner quarterbacks. It was embarrassing. Defense held them to only a fourth quarter field goal, and Romo had a great game with Des Bryant. The Detroit Lions up next, number 12 spot. Them and the Cowboys traded. They lost a mini shootout between Stafford and Dalton. You had 3 touchdowns apiece for them, around 350 yards and 155 each to their number 1 receivers. Now they go up to face a good Cowboys team, so that's going to be a good matchup for them as well. 13's the Chargers. They hop up to surefire win for them, facing just a terrible Jaguars. Phillip Rivers being 22 of 26 is great. That's great stats for him. He's honestly putting his name up as a midseason MVP at this point. Also, another great game by Matthews, getting over the century mark. So, also, I want to say for next week, because we're gonna have to cut the show a little bit short this week. I'll probably be ending about 3:45 or 3:50. We got to go do a TV shoot for the basketball team. Next week we'll do some mid-season awards, so that'll be fun to do. Number 14 is the Jets. Like I said, being a harsh critic of the Jets as a fan, you're going to see me drastically jump them up and down in the rankings. They can lose a game and I'll drop them down 7, and then they'll win, I'll jump them up 7. So I'm sorry for the little bit of bias in there, but it's going to happen. The coaches are finally seeing what has been in front of their eyes the whole time when you have a healthy Ivory. So I'm very glad he got 34 carries. He jumped over 100 yards. Now maybe he'll want to stay, and maybe they'll keep him if they're not stupid, but they are. So, yeah. 15 is the Ravens. They went down to, it was a hard-fought game, always against the Steelers. 19-16 is a classic Ravens-Steelers score. Only a touchdown scored for the both of them. The rest were field goals. Take a look at Rice's stats. Like I said last week, 45 yards and no scores, and they lost the game. When he doesn't show up, they don't get the win. 16 is the Titans. They stayed in the same spot. It was a tough loss against the 49ers. They're just rolling. 4 wins in a row, I believe. The plus side is Locker is back, and he looked pretty good, more towards the fourth quarter, where he threw 2 touchdowns. He had over 300 yards. But, another less than 50-yard performance. I don't even call him CJ2K. I call him CJ.25K because he's doing horrible the last couple of years. It's going to kill him every time. Number 17 is the Dolphins. They went down 3. The other half of the AFC East played on Sunday too. You had the Finns losing to the Finns losing to the Bills. Early mistakes by Tannehill. He threw a pick 6. He had some big pressure towards the end with a big Mario Williams sack. It's what lost him the game. 18 is the Panthers, who hopped up 5. 2 impressive margins of victory over the last 2 teams they faced. Some mediocre opponents, but still, it's going to jump them up a little bit in the rankings. They're not looking too bad. Defense had an early pick 6, and they wound up putting Bradford out for the season in a game where Chris Long, who I just talked up last week for very good comments on the Matt Schaub injury, got himself ejected from the game for throwing a punch. 19 is the Buffalo Bills, who, as well with the Panthers, jumped up 5 spots. It was a solid divisional win for Buffalo. Defense played very well on a weekend where the offense lacked a little bit. They're right back to under a game under 500, being 4-4. So they're 3-4 right now, going to face. Who did I say they were facing? I just talked about it. I can't remember. Number 20 is the Browns. They jumped down a spot. Expect to see job listings for Cleveland quarterback spot on Craigslist, Monster.com, Career Builder, American Youth Football, any website you can think of. After that terrible performance by Whedon, I'll say it again because it's horrible just to hear. 17 of 42 for 149 yards. How you throw 42 passes and only net 150 yards is beyond me. 21 is the Cardinals. Defense had some really good spots in the second and third quarter, like I said, but the Seahawks are just such a well-rounded team. They just couldn't consistently keep the pressure on them. 22 is the Rams, who jumped down 4 spots. Losing Bradford for the year is terrible for them. He was the only thing, along with a few, good spotty performances by the defense, that was truly holding this team barely together. There's always next year, and that seems to be the case for them. Maybe they'll get rid of Schottenheimer. 23 is the Eagles. They went down a lot too, hopped down 6 spots. Foles threw for 80 yards before going out with a concussion. You see like I said, you see Pop Warner quarterbacks throwing for better than 80 yards. Then Barkley came in and threw 3 interceptions on his final 3 drives. So just a bad day for Philly. They're going to lick their wounds and then, head over and face the Giants, which could be bad depending on it. Is Mike Vick going to come back? He still had the knot in his hammy last week, so we're going to keep an eye on that. Number 24 is the Steelers. They jumped up 1. Getting 2 wins in a row is good for Pitt, after being winless, especially against Baltimore. Division team that they love playing, but they still have a long way to go. You shouldn't move up 5 spots, just for getting 2 wins in a row. They're still a 2-4 team. A lot of teams are way better. A lot of teams above them are still better than Pittsburgh. 25 is the Falcons, who jumped down 3. You're going to, like I said, I say it every week with Power Rankings, you're going to see weird things. Moving down 3 spots after a win can have you scratching your head, but they're still a 2-4 team who only beat the second worst 0-6 Bucks by 8 points. So you can't overreact after a marginal win. 26 is the Raiders. They facing another 2-4 team after having the week off to rest. Pryor's leading the offense in everything but receiving, everything that he can lead in. So he's carrying the team on his back right now. But being last in passing yards hurts. 27 is the Texans. Nobody needed a bye week more than Houston. I'm convinced Case Keenum is your quarterback. Foster's hammy is acting up, but he's expected to be good after the bye, they said. And you got Brian Cushing out for the year. It's just a big ouch situation for them. 28 is the Redskins. A surprising high-scoring game. 3 touchdowns for Halou kind of shocked everybody with Alfred Morris coming into the season being so high on everybody's list, including mine, including Washington. I think, they shocked themselves with that win. Seems like more press on their name and, what happens after the game than that they actually won this week. But that's the NFL today. 29 is the Giants. They jumped up 2 spots after being, second to worst for the last couple weeks. First win, so, excited Giants fans, definitely. I got work with a lot of Giants fans, and they're all very happy. But how could you not beat that terrible Freeman-led Vikings team? They head to another ailing division foe in the Eagles. 30 is the Vikings. Frazier's coaching himself out of job with all these choices. 2 weeks in a row trying to force Freeman in. It makes no sense dropping him back 53 times when Adrian Peterson carries the ball 13 times. You have a guy who almost broke the record last year, and you're rushing him 13 times. It's just mind-boggling. Second to last is the Buccaneers. Only them and the Jags are winless, and now losing Doug Martin for an extended period of time. Now that we know today after the update, not the season, it's horrible for this team. So, and then last but not least. Last but least, actually, because they're horrible, is the Jaguars. Trade deadline is looming. Is MJD going to be on the block? Who knows at this point? They're focused on how badly they're going to get beat by the 49ers at this point, who are just rolling, winning 4 in a row. So that's Power Rankings. Like I said, next week I'll still do Power Rankings, but we may not spend as much time on it. Maybe I'll say the big changes, say the top 5, the bottom 5, and we'll do the midseason awards. So that'll be fun to do. We'll do a little bit of team talk real quick. Seahawks are 6-1 right now, 2-0 in the division. They do have a divisional game this Monday night. First in the NFC West, so they're doing very well so far. Last year they were 11-5, lost in the divisional round to the Falcons, a 30-28 loss that came down to the wire. I have them ranked 3rd. They've been staying there the last couple weeks. And I think they're that good. I think they're one of the best in the NFC. Next, like I said, Monday night facing St. Louis. Their last win was at Arizona this past Sunday, 34-22. Thursday they beat Arizona 34-22. So they got a long week of rest going from Thursday to Monday. They're 25th in passing right now with a 214-yard average, but they are second in rushing. Marshawn Lynch doing very well, 154 yards. Per game. It looks like there's some HGH in those Skittles he's munching down on the sidelines. The passing defense is phenomenal, ranked 2nd, holding quarterbacks to 190 yards on average, and the rush defense is right up there with them, holding opposing running backs to 91 yards. They're ranked 6th in rushing. Wasn't a big marquee draft for them. They picked up a running back, Christine Michael from Texas A&M in the 2nd round. He's going to kind of, sit in the wings until, Marshawn Lynch is has his whole contract issue where they're going to keep him if he's going to want a whole lot of money now. Who knows? Some key acquisitions. They had defensive end Cliff Averill from the Lions for dirt cheap. You got Michael Bennett from the Bucks. They lost defensive tackle Alan Branch to the Bills. Also defensive back Marcus Trufant to the Jaguars. But they're not missing anybody in the secondary because it's the best in the league, hands down. You got safety Earl Thomas, who I think is one of the best defensive players at this point in time. Definitely the best on that unit. The other safety is Cam Chancellor, and then you have your two quarterbacks, Richard Sherman, who's just got the biggest mouth in football right now, and Brandon Browner. So just all around a great unit, but I definitely think Earl Thomas is the best one in that secondary. When I did the playoff predictions earlier in the year, I had them losing to the Broncos in the Super Bowl. They could win it. They could get knocked out in the division round again. Who knows? But I think they're going to finish the season probably about 13-3. The only other two losses possibly coming from New Orleans and then their second game against San Francisco, because the rest of the season, is kind of a cakewalk for them. So that was all right. So a couple minutes left before I got to go. Like I said, I got a little bit of a surprise. So head over to Facebook, facebook.com/intentionalgrounding, or Twitter @INT_grounding. Get your computer. I was watching the league. If you haven't watched it, it's a hysterical show. Even if you don't play fantasy football, it's still very funny. It's on FXX now, the new network they came out with. So hysterical show, and they took the Wonderlic test. If you are not familiar with the Wonderlic test, it is what every NFL prospect has to take during the combine before they go into the draft. So I think it's like a 10-minute test. It's like a standardized test. I searched it. I wasn't going to pay for it, but an old ESPN article had a sample test. So it's a 15-question sample test. You put 5 minutes on the clock and see how many you can get correct in the 5 minutes. Don't look at the answers because the answer's at the bottom, so don't cheat. Just start off at the beginning and scroll down very slowly. Grab a piece of paper and a pen and write down your answers, and when you're done at the end, let me know what you got, because I thought I did all right until I started grading it. I went 9 of 15, so I got 9 right out of 15, about a 60%, but I had a minute remaining on the clock. So check it out, see if you can beat me. Respond to the post on Facebook and write me back a reply on Twitter. Tell me what your score is, and be honest, because nobody likes a cheater. But it was a lot of fun this week, as always. Like I said, we'll cut a little bit short next week. Definitely looking forward to doing midseason awards. We'll do all the ones that the NFL, along with the Associated Press, do, MVP and Offensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, everything like that. We'll see where we are at this point in the season. As always, keep an eye on all of the social media, everything, and we will definitely see you back next week. Have a good one, everybody.